Welcome back to Everything's Fine, Probably podcast, where each week we hose you down with some sparkling, improbable optimism. Because yes, the headlines are bleak, the politicians are leaking, and reality sometimes feels like a satire written by a sleep-deprived AI. But underneath the chaos, there's still good news, sometimes buried like treasure, sometimes wandering around in a high vis looking confused, and we're here to find it, polish it up, and wave it in your face until you remember that not everything is awful all the time. This week, the government quietly dropped a healthy eating initiative after being lobbied by Big Crisps. So now your weekly shop is sponsored by type 2 diabetes, but hey, at least the sugar tax hasn't been extended to irony. And we had Eurovision at the weekend, with the UK entry titled What the Hell Just Happened, which is pretty much what I thought at the end of every single act. Still, it's a song title that will make a great official post-election slogan for 2025. So, stick around. We've got good news about the environment, about progress in the fight against cancer, and about sparkly vole poo. This is your weekly antidote to despair, one story at a time, because everything is still fine. Probably. The good news to start with is that Stu is on holiday. So I'm joined by Shelley this week. How are you, Shelley?
I'm good, thank you. I have a glass of wine this week.
I saw that you're tucking in.
Yeah,
What have you got there? I can see it's
just
red,
a
and that's about it.
just a lovely cab serve,
Mhm.
just left over from the weekend.
Leftover.
Yeah.
You've never struck me as the kind of person who would have leftover wine.
No, I do look like somebody who would just, shot an entire bottle of wine, really.
You're not the kind of person who would be holding it, smacking the base of the bottle,
Yeah.
trying to get those last strips out.
Yeah, and I drink it with a straw. Not from I don't sip it from a wine glass.
Oh no, far too refined. Leftover wine, how about that?
Yeah. I've got one of those like bottle stopper thing, where you like suck all the air out of it.
Indeed, yeah, I know them well.
So yeah, so the red wine keeps for a couple of days now.
Excellent.
Mm,
Good, good,
that's
good.
my good news. Anyway,
And it's very good news. The cat's joining you for any wine?
no, they're all out in the garden enjoying the lovely weather.
Oh, fair
So
enough.
yeah, they'll come to annoy me at a crucial point. So
As is their way.
yeah.
Well, we don't have any cat stories this week, no lamb stories. We have some voles, but we'll come on to them later. But I would like to start, if I may,
You
by
may.
thank you.
Yeah, permission is granted.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Shelley. So, for once, just for once, there's a cancer headline that doesn't end in more research needed or results were inconclusive. This week, scientists from the University of Cambridge announced something genuinely extraordinary. A new treatment approach for inherited breast cancer has delivered a 100% survival rate 3 years after surgery. Not 80%, not statistically significant. Every single one of the 39 women in the trial is alive.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah, so this is over 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. They all had early stage breast cancer linked to BRCA1 and BRCA2, the so-called Angelina Jolie genes. Their mutations notorious for being aggressive and hard to treat. And these women were first given chemo and then a targeted drug called alaparib. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Who knows? But they were given this before surgery, not the usual post-op stuff. And I think this new sequencing might just be the secret sauce. Because the result, they say no deaths, zero, nada, not a single one, in the critical 3 year post-surgery window, a period where recurrence or complications often show up like uninvited guests at a funeral. Professor Jean Abraham, the lead on the trial, said it's rare to have a 100% survival rate in a study like this, and for these aggressive types of cancer, which, let's face it, from an academic, that's basically the equivalent of popping champagne and doing a backflip.
We should all get our tits out to celebrate.
And this is where everyone should be pleased that this is audio only. So these BRCA related cancers, they're notoriously cruel. They strike early, they progress fast, they often run through families like a bad inheritance. So a treatment that can halt them in their tracks and do it safely, that's nothing short of revolutionary. We're talking about rewriting the survival odds for thousands of women. And it's not just some fringe theory from a wellness blog, it's Cambridge, clinical trials, peer-reviewed excitement. It could become the most effective treatment to date for this kind of breast cancer, and bigger trials already in the pipeline. Of course, yep, some caution applies. Yes, it's only 39 patients. Yes, it needs scale. Yes, cancer is still a bastard. But don't let the scientific disclaimers dilute the fact. This is huge, and not just medically, but emotionally.
Well, I think it's because, really this is like, one of the biggest killers of women as well. I mean, men do get breast cancer, but this is a very, like, that's a very common cancer for women to get. So, yeah, and it's really, and also you don't really know. I mean, I think everybody probably knows someone that's been affected by that at some point. So
yes, it's one of those really fantastic times where we get to say, something just it's worked. Not in theory, not in mice, in actual humans, and in actual time. We don't get many wins like this, really.
yeah.
So yes, I mean, why this hasn't been bigger news, I have no idea. When we get a win like this, I think it's well worth shouting about. And maybe, just maybe this time, this isn't fresh hope; it's real hope.
Yeah, and good for all those women who've sort of, volunteered and done the research, and for all the participants, I suppose. So
Absolutely, yeah. So there are
yeah.
people who have potentially helped thousands of people out massively. So.
Mm.
Thank you to the scientists at the University of Cambridge. See what you can do if you're not dicking around with Roombas.
We really need to stop laying into the University of Bath.
I mean, did they get a grant for that?
I don't know, but that actually gave us a reasonably good news story, though, didn't it? It was a good talking point.
It was certainly that. Now, on to interesting talking points. So you've got a slightly different but also hugely exciting health story. The future of weight loss is here, and it's wrapped in foil with a hint of bitterness.
Yeah, well, progress in the medical world, because now the more biscuits you eat, the thinner you can get. I'm
not technically the
not
whole
sure if
story,
that's
is it, Shelley?
exactly what I mean. I always thought, I mean, yeah, I suppose. Do you know if you have a packet of biscuits and there's a broken biscuit on the top, you know that broken biscuit doesn't count. It actually has 0 calories in it.
Is that scientific fact, Shelley?
Yeah, that was investigated by the University of Shelley.
I really thought you were going to say Bath there.
It's got, yeah, University of Bath, also they concur. Yeah.
Okay, one day we will stop laying into the University of Bath.
Yeah, I'm going to find some more news about the University of Bath. I'm going to be.
If they've actually been doing something useful.
Yeah, I'm going to get their prospectus for the next episode. I mean, Bath's a beautiful city. I imagine they have.
But Bath's lovely. So maybe that's it. They're just messing around, and when they've got to go in, they're like, "Oh, I don't know. What's that robot vacuum cleaner up to? Let's do something with that." Yeah. Anyway, so you found something.
That's probably someone PhD that was tearing to shreds there. someone agreed to it though. They had to, so
Clearly. I mean, the fact they then went public with it is maybe striking, but there we are. A biscuit, Shelley, a biscuit
I
that
digress.
helps you lose weight.
I'm so
That is
excited.
both the problem and the solution.
I'm so excited that I'm struggling to get the story out.
I mean,
Like,
we already established that provided a normal biscuit is broken, that's fine. That's not a
yeah,
problem.
okay,
It's
but
all those whole ones.
yeah, I don't want anyone stealing that bit of important research because that broken biscuit theory is for my PhD. So this
Published.
though, the scientists have created a biscuit that contains an ingredient to help people lose weight. But I will say, caveat, this is according to an early study. So, and this is from the team of from University of Eastern Piedmont. I hope I've said that right. It's in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Piedmont. It's spelled Pidmont.
Sure, why not?
If you say it in an Italian accent, it might sound more.
I'm not going to do that.
We're not going to go down that route. Sorry, Italy. I'm sorry for thinking it. Anyway, they presented their findings at the European Congress on Obesity in Spain. So they've obviously got some real. They've obviously collected some genuine data here for them to go to what would be a big conference really and present it in front of their peers.
Yeah, so how does it work?
So there's a bitter compound that comes from a plant. It's called Artemisia absinthium.
That one. Yeah,
absinthium. I should write this down phonetically before I try to actually say it.
That might be an idea.
Artemisia absinthium plant.
I mean, you sound like you're trying to
which is actually wormwood. So I could have just said wormwood. I could have spared myself all of that. And they put it into a dark chocolate biscuit. And the people who ate this biscuit ended up feeling fuller. So what it does, it works in a very similar way. The weight loss injections.
Okay, yeah.
Things like Ozempic and Mounjaro, things like that. It stimulates the release of the hormones that you get in that injection pen.
Okay.
So it's a GLP-1. Okay, it's not an inhibitor. It's a agonist. Sorry, and I really made sure I remembered what I was talking about today.
No, I can tell. But then you found the leftover wine, and it all.
So anyway, the GLP-1 hormone, which is a hormone that we tend to release when we've eaten, and it stimulates. It helps to regulate our blood sugar, but it also kind of sends the signals really that we're full. It makes us feel more full up, which is why people take this injection, because it basically makes you feel fuller more of the time, and it also does that by it delays gastric emptying. So when you eat a meal, you're not going to want to eat as much because it's not moving. So, and you're not going to then want to have a snack later. So this sounds quite promising. I mean, I would wonder if this is probably going to be a lot cheaper to produce, and also, less wastage as well because you eat it all. So
yeah, absolutely.
So
it curbs hunger by being bitter. Basically, this is the wood in it is bitter, and it releases.
It's the hormone. Yeah, it stimulates the release of hormones that make you feel full up and curb your appetite. So, I mean, I can just imagine though, if a doctor says, "Oh, you've got to have one of these, or say 2 of these biscuits every day," but you just can't manage it because you feel full all the time.
And medicine you can't take because you're too full from eating the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, it sounds promising though. It's another way of looking at things, and it comes in a delicious chocolate biscuit. So you're still, you're losing weight, but you're also getting your sweet fix for the day.
This is one of those great examples of thinking about things in a slightly different way, I think. Here, you're trying to make the problem the solution.
Yeah, I like one thing because when they were talking to one of the doctors involved in it, they did actually acknowledge about, you know, how difficulty weight loss is for a lot of people, because actually you don't really get any help for the emotional part of eating. You know, people comfort eat, people eat, you know, like lots of people who've been through trauma or stressful situations, they overeat because they don't know how to comfort themselves, and they use food to try and it's sort of like a quick fix. So this will help with that situation in a way, but I do think people probably could do with a bit more emotional support, and you know, when it comes to the real journey of weight loss. So
All right, let's go for a bit of a change of tone there. So we've done a bit about health. I would very much now like to do a bit about the environment. We've got some wonderful emissions news this week. 2 weeks ago, Shelley, when you weren't joining us, me and Stu, we talked a lot about China in that podcast, and all the great news coming there. And last week,
oh yeah, pangolins. I did hear. I did listen.
there was pangolins, there was snooker, there was the thing that sort of kicked it all off was the commitment they made to have plans on reducing all emissions, putting that plan in place by the end of the year. Now, there's even further good news this week. China's carbon emissions have finally tipped into reverse, like a coal-powered bus trying to do a U-turn on a bicycle lane. And unlike past dips, which have been caused by lockdowns or economic slumps, this time it's because China is embracing renewable energy harder than your aunt hugs you at Christmas after too much sherry. According to Carbon Brief, China's emissions have dropped 1% in the last year, and a steeper 1.6% just in the first quarter of 2025. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but for the world's biggest polluter, it's the equivalent of Godzilla switching to a plant-based diet. And it's not just a blip caused by fewer people driving karaoke bars. This time, it's the rise of renewables that's doing all the heavy lifting. China added more green energy projects last year than the rest of the planet combined. Coal use is finally declining in the power sector thanks to new wind, solar and nuclear capacity. Now, Shelley, before you whip out your bamboo confetti and start celebrating, Carbon Brief does remind us that the long-term trend depends heavily on China's next 5-year plan, the one that I mentioned they've committed to having by the end of the year, and the current economic chess match with President Trump, who will be making international policy decisions based on whether or not he skipped breakfast. The trade war is forcing China to pivot towards domestic consumption. In response, the Chinese government's promoting a new economic model centered on clean energy and things like hydrogen, virtual power plants, probably an AI panda that teaches kids about carbon neutrality, all that good stuff. And because nothing says urgent climate progress like bureaucratic paperwork, China's renewable projects are now in a mad dash to install before a new pricing policy hits in June. And the result of this is a massive solar and wind installation boom. We're talking 23 gigawatts of solar and 13 gigawatts of wind added in March alone. For context, that's enough electricity to power every hairdryer in the galaxy. Or at least every TikTok
in the galaxy
in Shanghai. Yeah, in the whole galaxy. What makes you think we're the only ones using hairdryers, Shelley?
Yeah, hair dryers could be out there.
I think as long as hair is there, hair dryers probably are. You disagree?
No,
Everyone else in the universe is just shaking.
There's no way that I actually have any evidence to disagree with the fact that there could be more hair dryers out in the galaxy. I like that this has actually become the talking point of what was a really,
it wasn't supposed to be the main crux of the story, to be honest, but
it was a really important story, but we're just now talking about the possibility of hair dryers outside of our solar system.
And I think it's important to keep an open mind.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose though it's the fact that they're investing.
Yeah,
that's one of the bigger things, isn't it? It's the planning and the investing.
And actually, the contribution that China on its own is making, bigger than the rest of the globe in some cases, partly because they've got such a long way to come back from
Mm,
the worst polluters to try and just be moderate sized polluters.
yeah, yeah.
It's not, to be honest, all sunshine and rainbow powered turbines. Emissions in some of their other sectors, metals, chemicals, spontaneous dance routines in steel factories, they've ticked up. They're powered by cheaper coal and the sudden need to make a lot of things really fast before more tariffs kick in.
Mm,
But cement production, that's down, not because they're building fewer things, but because warm weather came early and Chinese construction workers decided to finally take a break and enjoy a mojito.
mm, yeah.
And in the, wait, what? File? Emissions from coal chemicals are still rising. Apparently, there's a booming business in turning coal into whatever the opposite of a solution is. Here's, though, a really surreal little twist. Across nearly all sectors, oil, gas, even cement, emissions have been stable or falling for over a year. So the Earth has got this tiny breather. And if clean energy does keep expanding at this rate, if China's emissions could enter a structural decline,
Okay.
which can only be a good thing. So the moral of the story basically is China might be on the verge of turning its carbon Titanic away from the iceberg. Slowly, awkwardly, with lots of industrial clanking, but it's turning, and that's still a major plot twist in the global climate narrative.
Yeah, I think it's good that you that sort of managed to find so many positive stories about environment, really.
Honestly, there is so much out there, and
Yeah,
if I can, I'd like to turn immediately to the US
you
because
may.
while Donald Trump has been busy trying to bring back 1950s energy policy, apparently alongside 1950s gender roles, America's renewable sector has been politely ignoring him and is absolutely thriving.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
So we can just ignore him then. That is an option.
it's. I don't know why we're not. That's the bit that really blows my mind about it. But let me tell you, in the first quarter of 2025, a staggering 98% of new electricity capacity in the US came from wind and solar. That is the kind
Hmm.
of stat that makes oil lobbyists choke on their fagua.
Yeah, I wonder what the world would be like if we'd never discovered oil.
Thought you were going to say if we'd never discovered Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but Donald Trump might not exist if we'd never discovered oil.
well, there's a pleasing thought.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
mean, he is
I
kind
mean,
of a plastic person, isn't he? And you can't have plastic without oil.
well, there is that.
Mm,
There is
he's,
that.
he's definitely a part of a polymer chain, isn't he?
I mean, I don't know what he's a part of, quite frankly, not the human race, certainly. Um, Back to the story. Yes, notwithstanding the Trump administration's anti-renewable energy efforts, began Ken Bosson of the Sunday campaign in what must be the diplomatic equivalent of starting a sentence with "bless his heart." He went on to confirm that the renewables juggernaut it's not slowing down anytime soon, not even for a government that thinks climate change is just a left-wing hoax with excellent branding. He's a real kicker. Trump's attempts to rescue fossil fuels may be unintentionally turbocharging renewables. Because according to the Financial Times, the cost of building new gas fired power plants in the US has tripled over the past 3 years. Why? Because of tariffs and trade wars and general economic whiplash. Because apparently, when you tax steel and aluminum and common sense, it gets a bit pricey to build infrastructure. So while the administration loudly shouts about oil and gas like a cowboy yelling at a wind farm, the economics of energy have quietly turned on the heel. Solar panels are cheaper, wind turbines are sexier, relatively speaking, and gas plants about as appealing as buying a fax machine in 2025. So what we're
Mm,
witnessing is kind of a renewable judo. using the force of a bad policy against itself. Trump wants more fossil fuels, but his actions make them less competitive. So it's a real chance in 4 years, the only thing Trump will actually have truly accomplished in his energy policy is accidentally accelerating the green transition. So this progress, it's very real, but it is also fragile. Regulatory sabotage still matters, delay is still dangerous. And there's only so long you can coast on market momentum before you need some serious climate policy with teeth, not just vibes and tax credits, lawsuits. But for now, the renewable sector, it's flexing in the face of political headwinds and economic confusion, and a president who once claimed wind turbines cause cancer. Little spoiler, they don't. They cause lower energy bills and mild turbine envy. So yeah, delicious twist of fate. The Trump administration's first 100 days might be more useful to solar than to coal. I mean, you can't make it up really, can you? Although, frankly, at this point, it kind of feels like someone is. There's big, then, environmental stuff happening. There's other environmental stuff happening. Shelley, I'm going to pass back over to you now, because you've got stories about, basically about pooey water, really.
It's about rivers and poo.
Rivers and poo.
Yeah.
So please kick us off. Do you want to start with your pirates against poo?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the direction I was going in. I thought, let's go for some like some pirates who are on the open waves of poo at the moment.
Struggling for sanitation.
Yes, yeah. I couldn't really I mean, I couldn't think of a pun. I just really, that wasn't a pun in any way that I tried.
No, it's just a bit of
it wasn't a quip, it was a nothing. Anyway, this is local to you back in Norfolk. So this is a local news story for Norfolk, well, east of England anyway. And yeah, so we've had the Surfers Against Sewage organisation organised a protests all against these against all across the east of them. We're just protesting the existence of the east of England now.
I mean, yeah, I've lived here a long time. I know how they feel.
Don't worry, it'll be underwater eventually. So yeah, they were protesting across the east of England about sewage discharges across the region. And so they started a protest that was called Pirates Against Poo. So if you'd been out somewhere, like maybe on Whitlingham Broad, you would have seen a lot of people in paddleboards and canoes dressed as pirates, taking to the sludgy waves. Oh, sludgy waves. Why didn't I just say that before? Yeah, so to make a protest really against Anglia Water, because there'd been such a huge increase of sewage discharges into the waterways. So they said that, they said, yes, we know we're all here in fancy dress, but they have done this whole thing to draw attention to themselves, really, and to draw attention to the cause and the stand that they want to take against like water companies like Anglia Water for not really managing the situation. I think, it's been quite a theme across the country, really, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of apologising and blaming it on the climate change and weather, even though I think a lot of us are quite aware that there's also been the influence of making profits and not investing.
Yeah, I think really the only thing more polluted probably than the water is the water companies' excuses.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, they're saying, Anglia Water saying their next 5-year business plan builds a pace on work we've already started. It contains our largest ever investment, which is 1 billion into tackling storm spills and 11 billion overall to improve our performance. And then if their performance improves, that means more bonuses all round. Hooray!
Hooray! Yes.
I mean, I live
the money tree for them. I think we all know that the water companies need to do better. Certainly when your paddleboard is coming out browner than your suntan, it's time to do something, and it's great to see that pirates
Yeah.
have taken a stand in this. It's not something they're traditionally known for. I assume they were dressed as sort of your old-fashioned style pilots, not your modern Somalian style ones.
No, I mean, if I mean, I don't know if it's like, yeah, stereotyping pirates. I don't know if that's an offence. But I don't think it is. I don't think the Somalian pirates mind if people dress up as
Well, no,
like kind
that's
of
the thing,
Jack
are they dressed
Sparrow
in the sort of vests with the little stubby submachine guns, or are we talking
or Jack Sparrow kind of
absolutely, yeah, with your
Disney,
big
like
hats,
Pirates of the Caribbean
yeah, the big
style
coats, and
pirates.
pirates. So are those old-fashioned pirates, what great role models they were for disabled people.
Yes, yes, they were. They really, really had established quite good, what's up? They must have made quite a lot of reasonable adjustments aboard their ships.
So Anglian Water advertise on TV. Now, does this not feel like a monumental waste of money? Because it's not like, living as I do in Norfolk, that I can contact Thames Water and go, yeah, I'm not very happy with Anglian. Can you ship me some water in? I've got no choice. I have to use Anglian Water. Why put an advert on the telly with what?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because it's not like you can just go and like
I
compare
don't have a choice.
the water companies and pick like another water company. I mean, because I certainly would, and I'm living somewhere where we've had the biggest increase in water bill prices. Like ours went up 50%. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't pick that. I think all they're really advertising is coming to live in East Anglia, aren't they?
Yes, which, pirates against poo, that might be discouraging people from doing.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I think it's interesting. I don't know how much that costs, but when you're spilling sewage out into the rivers, maybe there's better places to put your money. That,
mm,
that's all.
yeah.
We have
Anyway,
we have one final story about poo, which and water, which has very much been your area of expertise today, Shelley. Tell us
yeah, it
the
is. It
latest
is. Yeah,
water story.
yeah. Oh, you all right? You sort of seemed like you'd fallen off your chair then. No,
No,
you're
no,
fine.
I'm fine. I'm still here. I was just
You're
feeling a bit jealous of your wine and checking out what's in the beer fridge. That's all.
okay, okay. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I'm raising a glass to the waterways and all the poo in the country at the moment, which has given me something to speak about. So, yeah, moving on to a different part of the UK now, to South Wales,
Mhm.
where water voles in Wales are actually endangered, and they have come up with a really interesting way to help save them from extinction.
What
So,
is that interesting way, Shelley?
well, it just so happens that edible glitter is the answer.
So they're turning water voles into disco balls.
They're turning their poos into tiny disco balls. So,
Fantastic. Whatever next.
yeah.
Rhinestones for rhinos. Go on. So what happens? They eat the glitter, their
Yeah.
poo goes glittery,
Yeah. So
and this helps them to survive. How?
it's basically a way of tracking them.
Okay.
So yeah, so they did actually. So this has actually been an initiative. The nature conservation. Oh, I never know if I'm saying this right. Is it Cymru or Kymru? Cym
I do.
Cym
If we were bad on
Kymru.
Italian pronunciations
Ky
earlier,
Ky I'm
Welsh
sorry,
pronunciation.
Wales. I'm really sorry, Wales, because that is basically the word for like Wales.
But I think, to be fair, most Welsh people expect no better.
I'm
Sadly, the English is not
sorry.
being able to pronounce any Welsh at all. Um, yeah, sorry.
So what they are doing is they are coating their food in edible glitter and leaving food out for them. And they have actually checked with vets to make sure that this would be safe for water voles. So
Yeah, okay. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
they've investigated this properly.
done their due diligence.
Yes, yeah.
So they hope it's going to help them track the water voles. They've checked in, it's safe. How do the water voles feel about this?
I mean,
Fab-u-lous! They're all
the waterfalls are eating it, so they must be quite happy about it. They must be
I
like,
mean, if it's flavourless, so it doesn't bother them. I'm still a bit
yeah,
confused. So, okay, now they can track them.
yes. So,
What's this
so
do?
you really need to have a bit more patience.
Oh,
I
I'm
am
sorry, Shelley. I'll
getting to
shut
it.
the hell up
Can
and
you
let you
just,
tell the story.
and also, try and appreciate the story, have a little bit of mindfulness. We're literally talking about sparkly vole poo. This might never happen again. You need to try and take some time to appreciate the beauty and magnificence of this story.
No,
Right.
that's fair. You put me
And that
fully in
isn't
my
me
place.
buying time because I couldn't remember what the point of it was. Isn't it? So the reason is they need to track the voles so they can see where their habitats are, really. And then if they see where they are, mainly inhabiting, they can start to make changes. So to try and protect the riverbanks in those areas. So they can do things like hold off like sheep grazing, and they can do things like removing like trees away to stop it from preventing the wetland. And so there is a point to it. It is so that they can they need to track the voles to see what habitats need protecting, but they've also been using different colored glitter to try and to put in different areas so that they can track different vole families.
Okay.
So there could be a vole family. I don't know. I would call them Mr. Pink Sparkle Bum.
Okay. And what colour would they use?
Pink. I mean, it must make their poos like their bums a bit sparkly, and they
Well,
must get
I think
sparkly mouths as well.
they're just wandering around looking fabulous and
I know they've got a twinkle tush.
yeah. And it's nice to finally have a reason for glitter to exist beyond
I know, and
the
already for
art project at primary school.
But yeah, I just think this is a really lovely idea.
Yeah. Look,
What?
it's great. Like when other maybe more traditional tracking methods fail, let's put a bit of sparkle into science. Why not?
I know, and I think you could use that for so many things. Apparently, they have used it for tracking other species before as well. So there we are. I feel like for some reason that my stories have kind of floored you a little bit. Like you're just so wowed by them.
I love this idea that I could wander around parts of Wales now and find glitter poo trails that would lead me to vole families.
I think
Yeah,
it's worth looking
aside from
at.
the fact that that's almost a beautiful image, but this is great. Like, I mean, anything that's going to help with the conservation of the species has got to be good. And actually, sometimes a nice, simple solution like edible glitter, that's got to be a lot nicer for the voles than having chips put in them or things attached to them so they can be tracked, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. Imagine if people didn't know and you just keep finding all these little sparkly poos on, like, if you were fishing or something like that on the riverbank and you just keep finding sparkly poos. I mean, I would
What
start to
has
think,
Tinkerbell been eating?
yeah, I would start to think that fairies were real,
Yeah.
either that or unicorns were just really tiny.
I mean, I'd like to think if fairies were real, they wouldn't just shit all over the riverbanks. But
Well, what do you think fairies have like actual little toilets then?
yeah,
Do you think that they've got like sewage systems?
obviously, they don't need them. They're magic.
That's actually what's happening to all the profits from Anglia Water. They're like,
Fairies,
yeah,
flushing them all away.
I mean, it would be, it would be a good thing to tell the kids that you found fairy poo on the riverbank.
I mean, do you remember when you used to find like white dog poo?
Yeah,
What happened to white dog poo?
I think, yeah, that was just like, well, obviously that must have been in the air. I don't know. Was it something to do with the food that dogs ate?
I had no idea.
Like they just started eating better quality food so that their poo didn't go fluffy.
Oh, that's very possible. It's quite a dull solution, but
So I guess we need to be looking into for future reference what's happened to white dog poo.
yeah.
And well,
Why
this
do you
I
never
was
hear
going
about
to
people
say,
on that topic? Why do you never hear about people being blinded by dog poo anymore?
I mean,
People just stopped putting it in their eyes. Is that
it does
what
still
happened?
happen because they sometimes have problems with dogs if they poo like on football fields and stuff like that. So footballers end up getting that worm that makes you go blind.
Oh.
Yeah, not professional footballers, obviously.
Ah,
That's not an issue, but
a different way to sabotage the opposition, wouldn't it?
yeah, yeah. I think it would be worth investigating, but also, I thought that could link up with well, with what is else is happening at the University of Bath, but they might already be looking into it at the
I
University
don't know.
of
It sounds like proper scientific research, and I'm not sure it can be
Bath.
trusted.
It would be a pub quiz question as well, possibly, because this is something that you could just Google. We'll find out for next week.
There you go. Some research for you to be getting on with.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think that's about it for this week's episode of Everything's Fine, probably, don't you? Your regular reminder that the world isn't completely awful. We actually we really hope you enjoyed the pod. Because here's the thing: good news just doesn't just lift your spirits; it recalibrates reality. It reminds us progress is possible, that the grind of science quietly delivers, and that somewhere someone is working on something that could save a life, maybe even yours. In a world wired for bad headlines, it's worth pausing on the good ones. They don't just inform us, Shelley, they nourish us. So, if you're enjoying the good news, please subscribe, please like, please share, and we will be back again next week with more good news from wherever we can find it. Thank you for listening. Shelley, thank you for your company. Until
Thank you. I might not drink wine next week so I can pronounce things.
I won't bother.
Okay.
Right, go away. Bye.
Bye.